The dust motes danced in the afternoon sun, filtering through the high windows of the Heartland barn, illuminating the familiar scent of hay, horses, and home. Amy Fleming moved with a practiced grace, her hands gently stroking the neck of a nervous mare, murmuring soft words of reassurance. Years had passed since the world had irrevocably shifted, since the hole torn in her life by Ty Borden's death had begun to scar over, smoothed by time, routine, and the resilient love of her family. Lindy, now a bright-eyed girl with her father's quiet intensity mirrored in her gaze, was helping muck out stalls, her small hands determined. Nearby, Nathan, his presence a steady comfort Amy had learned to lean on, was discussing feed orders with Jack Bartlett, whose weathered face held the wisdom of seasons lived and losses endured. It was a picture of hard-won peace, a fragile tapestry woven from threads of grief and healing. Lou bustled between the house and the Dude Ranch, ever the organizer, while Tim checked on his own herd, his gruff exterior barely concealing the fierce protectiveness he felt for his daughters and granddaughter. Georgie, often away pursuing her own jumping career, was home for a rare visit, her laughter echoing from the paddock where she worked with Phoenix. Life at Heartland had found a new rhythm, a cadence marked by the ghosts of the past but focused firmly on the future. Yet for Amy, the phantom limb of Ty's presence never truly faded. It was in Lindy's smile, in the way Spartan still nickered softly when she approached, in the lingering ache deep within her soul. Nathan understood, or tried to. He offered a different kind of love, solid, dependable, a safe harbor after the storm. She cared for him deeply, saw a possible future painted in gentle, comforting hues. But the vibrant, sometimes chaotic colors of her life with Ty were etched onto her heart, a masterpiece of joy and sorrow she couldn't simply paint over. That afternoon, the familiar rhythm was shattered by the unexpected crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. It wasn't a ranch truck or a familiar visitor. A nondescript sedan, coated in the dust of long travel, pulled to a stop near the main house. Jack squinted, shielding his eyes against the sun, a flicker of caution crossing his features. Visitors were common, but something about this arrival felt different, charged with an unseen current. Amy paused, her hand still on the mare, a sudden, inexplicable tension gripping her. Lindy looked up, curious. Nathan stepped forward, protective instincts kicking in. The car door opened, and time seemed to stutter, the world narrowing to a single, impossible point. A man unfolded himself from the driver's seat, leaner perhaps, lines etched deeper around his eyes, hair shorter, but unmistakably him. The worn leather jacket, the way he moved, the intense focus in his eyes as they scanned the familiar surroundings, finally landing on Amy. Ty Borden stood at Heartland. The air crackled, the mare beside Amy shied, sensing the sudden surge of chaotic energy. Amy's breath hitched, caught somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Her mind raced, rejecting the image, scrambling for logic. A hallucination, a cruel trick of the light, of grief, but he didn't vanish. He took a tentative step forward, his gaze locked with hers. A universe of unspoken words, apologies and pain swirling within them. Amy, his voice, rougher, deeper, but achingly familiar, cut through the stunned silence. Jack's hand instinctively went to the porch railing, gripping it hard, his face a mask of disbelief. Lou, emerging from the house, froze mid-step, a tray slipping from her grasp, shattering the quiet with the clang of metal. Tim, alerted by the commotion, strode towards the scene, his usual bluster replaced by wide-eyed shock. Nathan stood rooted, his expression shifting from confusion to dawning, gut-wrenching realization. Lindy, sensing the monumental shift, took a step towards Amy, her small face clouded with uncertainty, instinctively recognizing the stranger, yet not understanding the tremor that shook her mother's frame. The reunion wasn't a rush of embraces, it was a collision of worlds, the past crashing violently into the present, leaving everyone reeling in its wake. The shockwaves radiated outwards, cracking the carefully constructed piece of Heartland right down to its foundations. Amy felt the ground tilt beneath her, the past she had painstakingly buried erupting with volcanic force. It wasn't just shock, it was a tidal wave of conflicting emotions, anger battling disbelief, relief warring with a profound sense of betrayal, and underneath it all, the undeniable persistent echo of love. How could he be here? Why now? The questions screamed in her mind, drowning out the soft whinny of the horse beside her, the gasp from Lou, the stunned silence of her grandfather. Ty looked weathered, haunted, carrying the weight of years lived elsewhere, under circumstances she couldn't begin to fathom. This wasn't just a return, it was a resurrection, and with it came 1,000 ghosts she thought she had laid to rest. The initial shockwave eventually receded, leaving behind a landscape of raw emotion and fractured quiet. Inside the familiar warmth of the Heartland kitchen, the air was thick with tension, heavy as a looming thunderstorm. Jack sat at the head of the table, his usual stoicism battling visible turmoil, his gaze fixed on T, searching for answers in the lines etched onto the younger man's face. Luce hovered near the counter, alternating between wringing her hands and forcing herself to breathe evenly, her mind clearly racing with practicalities and impossible questions. Tim paced near the window, his anger a palpable force barely held in check, muttering under his breath. Georgie sat beside Jack, her expression a mixture of confusion and a dawning understanding of the seismic shift this arrival represented. Amy stood apart, near the doorway, unable to sit, unable to process the reality of T standing there, nursing a mug of coffee. His hands trembled slightly around. Nathan had quietly excused himself earlier, a look of profound hurt in his eyes that Amy couldn't bear to meet, leaving her trapped in the eye of this emotional hurricane. Lindy was upstairs, mercifully shielded for now, playing under Lisa's gentle supervision, unaware that the father she knew only through stories and photographs was downstairs, turning her world upside down. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the ticking clock on the wall, each tick amplifying the unbearable weight of unspoken history. Finally, Jack broke it, his voice low but firm. T, you owe us an explanation. Not just Amy, all of us. T nodded slowly, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the family that had once been his anchor. He looked exhausted, not just physically, but soul-deep tired. I know, Jack. I know I do. He paused, gathering his thoughts, the words seeming to catch in his throat. It's complicated. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Me dying, I mean. Tim scoffed, turning from the window. Not supposed to happen. You were shot, Ty. We buried you. Amy grieved you. Lindy doesn't even know her father. The accusation hung heavy in the air. T flinched but met Tim's glare. I know what you lost, what Amy lost. Believe me, living with that has been its own kind of hell. He took a deep breath. The shooting, it wasn't random. It was connected to things from my past, people I thought I'd left behind long ago. Dangerous people. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. After I was shot, while I was recovering, I was approached by authorities. They said those people wouldn't stop, that my family, Amy, Lindy, you'd never be safe, as long as they knew I was alive and where to find me. Amy stepped forward, her voice trembling but laced with steel. Authorities? Who? Why wouldn't they tell us? Why let us believe? Her voice broke. Let me believe you were gone. T looked directly at her, his eyes pleading for understanding. It was the only way, Amy. Witness protection. A completely new identity. A clean break. They said it was the only guarantee for your safety, for Lindy's safety. They convinced me that staying dead to you was the only way to truly protect you. Every single day has been agony, knowing what I put you through, but believing it was necessary. Lou interjected, her voice sharp with disbelief. Witness protection? Hair? How is that possible? How did you even get back? The threat, it's neutralized now. T said vaguely, the lines around his eyes tightening. It took years, longer than anyone expected. When it was finally over, all I wanted was to come home. I had to see Amy, see my daughter. Jack studied him intently. Neutralized, just like that? The skepticism was clear. T ran a hand through his hair. It's a long story, Jack. Some parts I'm still not sure I can fully share, but the immediate danger has passed. I wouldn't be here if it hadn't. Amy wrapped her arms around herself, feeling cold despite the warm kitchen. Witness protection, a faked death. It sounded like something out of a movie, not her life. Not the life she shared with Ty, the man who loved horses and fixing bikes, who found solace in the wild. Yet, the explanation, however incredible, began to fill the agonizing void of why. It didn't erase the pain, the years of grief, the life she had started to rebuild without him, but it offered a reason beyond abandonment. It spoke of a twisted kind of protection, a sacrifice that cost everyone dearly, but the implications were staggering. If he was alive, if he was back, what now? The carefully constructed reality of the past few years crumbled around her. Her relationship with Nathan, the future she had tentatively started to map out, Lindy who deserved stability, everything was thrown into chaos. The conflict wasn't just external, it raged within Amy. Part of her wanted to scream at him, to unleash years of pent-up anger and hurt. Another part, the part that had never stopped loving him, felt an overwhelming urge to bridge the distance, to touch him, to confirm he was real. And beneath it all simmered a new fear, the fear of what this return meant for everyone, the uncertainty of a path forward that seemed impossibly complex and fraught with potential heartbreak. Could trust ever be rebuilt on such fractured foundations? Could they navigate the minefield of explanations Lindy would need? And where did Nathan fit into this resurrected past? The questions hung unanswered, swirling with the steam rising from Ty's coffee cup, promising more turmoil before any hope of resolution could dawn. The days following Ty's impossible return unfolded in a haze of whispered conversations, strained silences, and turbulent emotions. Heartland, usually a sanctuary, felt like a pressure cooker, the tension palpable in every interaction. Lindy, now aware that the man introduced tentatively as an old friend of Mommy's was, in fact, the father she'd only seen in photographs, reacted with a child's confusing mix of curiosity, shyness, and occasional bursts of challenging questions that left the adults floundering. Her innocent inquiries, "Where were you? Why did Mommy cry? Are you staying?" pierced the carefully constructed explanations, highlighting the immense challenge of integrating this resurrected past into her young life. Amy found herself navigating a labyrinth of conflicting feelings. Moments of raw anger would surface, fueled by the memory of gut-wrenching grief and the lonely years spent raising Lindy alone. How could he have let her believe the ultimate lie, regardless of the reason? Then, unexpectedly, a shared glance across the paddock, a fleeting glimpse of the old Ty in his interaction with a horse, or watching him tentatively try to connect with Lindy, would trigger a wave of the old, deep-seated love, confusing her further. Her heart felt torn, cleaved in two by the man who was her past, and the man who had offered her a future. Nathan, true to his nature, was trying to give her space, but the pain in his eyes was a constant reproach. Their conversations were stilted, orbiting the enormous, unspoken reality of Ty's presence. He deserved honesty, a decision, but Amy felt paralyzed, adrift on an ocean of what-ifs and how-coulds. Jack maintained a watchful presence, his initial shock giving way to a cautious, grandfatherly concern. He spoke with Ty at length, attempting to understand the full scope of the witness protection ordeal, his pragmatic mind grappling with the gaps in Ty's story and the implications for the family's safety and future stability. He worried deeply for Amy and Lindy, recognizing the long and difficult road ahead, regardless of the path chosen. Lou oscillated between fierce protectiveness of Amy and a pragmatic need to manage the situation's fallout, fielding questions from concerned neighbors and trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy at the Dude Ranch, a task that felt increasingly impossible. Tim remained the most outwardly volatile, his distrust of Ty's story simmering beneath the surface. He couldn't easily forgive the deception, the pain inflicted on Amy, frequently clashing with Ty in tense exchanges that often required Jack's intervention. Georgie tried to be a buffer, understanding Amy's turmoil, while also grappling with her own memories of Ty and the shock of his return. The explanation of witness protection, while offering a framework, felt thin in places. Ty remained vague about the specifics of the threat, the nature of his life during the intervening years, and the exact circumstances that allowed his return. This lack of concrete detail fostered unease, particularly for Jack and Tim. Was the threat truly over? Could these dangerous people resurface? Was Ty telling them the complete truth? Or were there more secrets hidden beneath the surface? This uncertainty became a source of underlying conflict, casting a shadow over the tentative steps towards reconciliation. One evening, Amy found Ty by the river, skipping stones across the water, a habit she remembered well. The setting sun cast long shadows, mirroring the complexities gathering around them. She stood beside him, the silence stretching comfortably for a moment before she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. Lindy asked me today if you were her real dad. She doesn't understand why you were gone, why I told her you were in heaven. Ty stopped, the stone heavy in his hand. He turned to her, his face etched with pain. Amy, there aren't words to tell you how sorry I am for that, for everything. Telling you, will be the hardest thing I ever do, but she deserves the truth. You both do. The truth is complicated, Ty, Amy replied, looking out at the water. It doesn't just erase the years, the grief, the life I started to build. I know, he whispered. Nathan. Amy hesitated. He's a good man, Ty. He's been there for me, for Lindy. Ty nodded, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. I see that. I never expected, I hoped, but I didn't know what I'd find. He looked at her directly. I'm not asking you to undo your life, Amy. I don't have the right. I needed to come back. I needed you to know why I wasn't there, and I needed to meet my daughter. The conversation didn't offer easy answers. It laid bare the immense challenges ahead, rebuilding trust, navigating the treacherous waters of forgiveness, defining a new family dynamic, and Amy's own heart-wrenching decision about her future. Ty's return wasn't an ending, it was the beginning of an entirely new, uncertain chapter for Heartland, one fraught with the ghosts of the past, and the daunting task of forging a future from the wreckage. The final scene lingered, not on resolution, but on the precipice of the unknown, leaving viewers to ponder the myriad ways this story could unfold, the emotional toll it would take, and whether the love that once defined Amy and Ty could possibly survive its resurrection.